They are two outsiders who married princes, became favourites of Queen Elizabeth, and are key to the future of the British royal family.
At exactly 7:42 p.m, the newsroom lights inside BBC were still glowing and a sentence slipped out that no one in the room expected to hear.
Not from a royal. Not on record.
And certainly not about the most explosive feud the British monarchy has faced in decades. The woman speaking was Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, a royal known for something almost suspiciously rare in palace circles: silence.
Until now.
Because according to Sophie, the story the world thinks it knows about Meghan Markle is missing one very uncomfortable detail. A detail involving the future king himself. Yes, Prince William.
For years the public was told a simpler story.
A modern duchess enters an ancient institution.
Culture clashes.
Protocol frustrations.
A royal exit. Netflix cameras.
Oprah interviews. End of chapter. But what if that version of events left out the moment everything inside the palace actually changed? What if the tension inside those gilded corridors didn't begin with racism accusations, or media pressure, or even royal protocol?
What if it began with something far more personal? Something whispered about by palace aides. Something noticed by senior royals.
Something that, according to Sophie, crossed a line no one inside the House of Windsor had ever seen crossed before.
A line involving Meghan and William.
And once that line was crossed, the countdown to Meghan's royal exit had already begun.
It's not really, but it's quite fun watching people's reactions.
So if you're in a crowd, you need to be aware that you're all watching to see what the reaction is.
The people in the cars behind have a great time.
The moment that comment aired, a strange silence followed.
Not the polite kind that fills television studios between segments.
The uncomfortable kind.
The kind that makes producers glance at each other through glass windows and silently ask, did she really just say that? Because the woman speaking was not a gossip columnist or a royal commentator fishing for headlines. This was Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, a royal who had spent nearly 3 decades doing something that almost no one in the modern media age can manage.
Staying quiet. Quiet through scandals.
Quiet through press storms. Quiet while the internet argued endlessly about Meghan Markle and her husband Prince Harry. But insiders say that silence didn't mean ignorance. It meant observation. Because long before the Netflix documentaries, long before the explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey, and long before the world started debating who was telling the truth inside the House of Windsor, palace corridors were already whispering about tensions that didn't quite make sense.
At first, it looked like a classic culture clash. A Hollywood actress enters one of the oldest monarchies on earth. Cameras flash. Headlines explode.
Social media crowns her the modern face of royalty overnight. But inside the palace? Things felt different. Royal aides reportedly noticed it first, subtle moments during early public appearances. Body language that didn't quite match the carefully choreographed etiquette the monarchy had followed for centuries.
And the center of those whispers wasn't Harry. It was Prince William.
Now, before anyone jumps to wild conclusions, Sophie's comments were careful.
Extremely careful.
She never suggested a romance, an affair, or anything that tabloids might dream up after midnight.
What she described was something far stranger. Patterns.
Moments that, when viewed alone, looked harmless. But when palace staff began quietly comparing notes, they started to notice a rhythm. One former staff member, speaking anonymously in what insiders call a private briefing memo, allegedly described the early months like this. It was small things at first. Too much familiarity.
Too much comfort around the future king.
Moments that made people shift uncomfortably in the room. And those moments reportedly began as early as Christmas 2017 at Sandringham. That holiday gathering was supposed to be Meghan's soft introduction to the royal inner circle. A quiet test run before the massive global spectacle of her wedding to Harry. Instead, according to staff recollections whispered years later, it became the first moment some palace aides exchanged concerned glances. One aide reportedly wrote in an internal note that Meghan appeared strangely focused on William's reactions during conversations. Another claimed she repeatedly redirected group discussions toward him.
Small details. Easy to dismiss.
Except the pattern didn't stop there. Months later, at a Buckingham Palace reception just days after the royal wedding, cameras captured what looked like a perfectly friendly family interaction. Meghan greeting William warmly, smiling brightly, the picture of modern royal charm. But insiders watching the unedited footage allegedly noticed something different. The greeting lingered. A little longer than expected. William's posture stiffened. One senior aide reportedly muttered something that would later echo through palace gossip circles for years. That looked uncomfortable.
Still, the palace said nothing.
Because royal protocol has one unwritten rule above all others: never feed a scandal before it becomes unavoidable. And for a while, it seemed manageable. Until early 2019. That was when the now famous Royal Foundation event placed four figures on one stage: William, his wife Catherine, Princess of Wales, Harry, and Meghan. The press immediately labelled them the Fab Four. The future of the monarchy: young, modern, united. But according to several anonymous staff accounts that later circulated among royal correspondents, what happened backstage that day looked nothing like unity.
An argument reportedly broke out over stage positioning. Who would sit where? Who would speak first?
And who would stand next to William during the event photographs. One palace insider allegedly texted a colleague moments before the cameras rolled: "Something weird is happening backstage.
This isn't about speeches anymore."
When the event finally began, viewers at home saw smiling royals discussing mental health initiatives. What they didn't see was the tension lingering behind every polite nod. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, insiders say the mood backstage had turned icy. And according to Sophie's later recollection, that moment may have been when several senior royals quietly realized something unsettling.
This wasn't just a personality clash. It was a power struggle.
And if those suspicions were even partially true, the quiet royal drama unfolding behind palace walls was about to become something far bigger than anyone outside the monarchy could imagine.
What happened next didn't unfold inside a palace corridor. It exploded online.
Within hours of the interview circulating, clips from the BBC segment were spreading across every major social platform.
Not slowly, not cautiously,
but like wildfire racing through dry grass. One 30-second clip in particular kept resurfacing. In it, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, leaned slightly forward and delivered a sentence so carefully worded that media analysts immediately started replaying it frame by frame. Sometimes the greatest disruption inside an institution does not come from hatred, but from someone who believes the rules do not apply to them.
She never mentioned a name in that moment, but everyone knew exactly who the internet believed she meant.
Within minutes, the name Meghan Markle began trending worldwide.
And then the theories began.
Twitter, now operating under its chaotic new era of viral speculation, turned into a battlefield of hashtags. One thread titled #PalaceTruth racked up over 2 million views in less than an hour. Another user posted a viral breakdown of archived royal event footage, claiming to analyze body language between Meghan and Prince William. The thread read, "Watch this carefully.
William steps back. Twice. Not once. Twice.
That's not coincidence, that's discomfort."
Within minutes, the post had thousands of comments. Some users defended Meghan fiercely.
Others insisted the palace had been hiding something for years.
And then things escalated.
Major entertainment blogs began publishing headlines that sounded less like reporting and more like courtroom arguments. Did palace staff ignore early warnings? The William question nobody asked until now. Was the Fab Four image always a mirage?
Television panels jumped into the chaos.
Royal commentators, body language experts, and media analysts suddenly appeared everywhere, dissecting every handshake and glance from royal footage dating back nearly a decade.
Meanwhile, supporters of Meghan pushed back just as loudly.
Influencers posted videos accusing the monarchy of launching a coordinated smear campaign. One viral clip argued, "Every time Meghan succeeds outside the palace, suddenly another royal insider appears with a news story. Funny timing, isn't it?"
The debate quickly turned tribal. Team Meghan, Team Palace.no middle ground. Even celebrities started drifting into the conversation.
One Hollywood producer tweeted, "Funny how confident institutions always wait until someone leaves before revealing their truth." A British television host fired back minutes later, "Funny how certain people accuse the monarchy of cruelty while cashing checks built entirely on royal fame."
The internet loved it. Screenshots of the argument spread everywhere.
TikTok creators began stitching together old interview clips, attempting to decode subtle tension between Meghan and the rest of the royal family. One video titled "The Look William Gave in 2019" passed 5 million views in a single afternoon.
But the real shock came later that evening.
Because while social media argued, a different development quietly appeared on the websites of several British news outlets. A brief report citing multiple palace staff sources claimed that internal concerns about Meghan's conduct had been documented long before the couple stepped away from royal duties. The article referenced an internal HR review first acknowledged publicly in 2021. Most people had forgotten about that investigation.
But now reporters were digging it up again.
According to the anonymous sources quoted in the report, the file allegedly included not just workplace complaints from staff, but notes describing repeated boundary concerns during senior royal engagements. The phrase immediately set the internet on fire. What boundaries? What engagements? And who exactly had documented them? One royal correspondent on television summed up the growing confusion perfectly. "We may have misunderstood the timeline," he said. "Everyone believed the crisis began after Harry and Meghan left. But what if the tension inside the palace actually began years earlier?" That question changed everything. Because if the conflict had been building long before the famous exit, then the public narrative about why the Sussexes left might be missing an entire chapter. And as journalists began calling former palace staff for comment, one more rumor surfaced. Quietly at first, then louder. Several reporters claimed that senior royals had privately warned Harry about certain behaviors months before the couple announced their departure. Warnings that, according to those whispers, he refused to accept. No one could confirm the claims. No official documents surfaced. But the possibility alone pushed the story into an entirely new territory. This wasn't just a celebrity feud anymore. It was starting to look like a family conflict that had spiraled far beyond the palace gates. And somewhere inside that chaos sat a question no one could answer yet. If these tensions had truly existed for years, why was Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, choosing to speak about them now? And more importantly, what else hadn't been revealed yet? For a brief moment, it looked like the storm might settle. After days of headlines, debates, viral clips, and endless speculation, the royal story cycle seemed ready to move on to the next scandal. Social media trends fade quickly. Outrage burns fast and disappears even faster. But then something unexpected happened. A senior royal correspondent, someone who had covered the palace for over 20 years, published a short, almost cautious update late one evening. No dramatic headline. No bold accusations. Just a single line that made journalists across London sit up in their chairs. Sources suggest the April interview may not have been an isolated comment. Additional internal discussions within the palace are reportedly ongoing. That sentence was enough to reopen the entire conversation. Because if there were still internal discussions, it meant one thing. The story wasn't finished. And that's when another layer quietly surfaced. According to several insiders speaking anonymously to British media, the moment Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, chose to speak publicly was not random at all. They claim it followed months of behind-the-scenes frustration among senior members of the royal household. Not anger. Frustration. Because for years the monarchy had followed one simple strategy when dealing with controversy: say nothing, wait it out, and let the public eventually lose interest. But insiders now suggest that strategy may have reached its limit. One former palace aide reportedly told a reporter, "Silence protects the institution until it starts protecting the wrong narrative." And that comment brings us to the twist that has royal watchers whispering again. Because behind closed doors, several analysts believe the palace has quietly shifted its long-standing approach toward the Sussex situation. Not confrontation. Not retaliation. Something colder. Distance. In recent months, observers have noticed something unusual about major royal events. State appearances, charity initiatives, international tours. None of them include references to Prince Harry or Meghan Markle anymore. Not criticism. Not acknowledgement. Just absence. And in royal strategy, absence can speak louder than words. Meanwhile, the future leadership of the monarchy appears increasingly centered around Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, whose public appearances continue drawing massive support across the United Kingdom. Some commentators now argue that the monarchy is quietly reshaping itself for the next era, an era where the Sussex chapter becomes little more than a footnote in a much longer royal timeline. But here's the part that makes this story far from finished. Because even as palace insiders claim the institution is moving forward, the global fascination with the Sussex saga hasn't disappeared. If anything, it's growing again. Streaming deals, interviews, memoirs, rumored documentaries. Every few months, a new piece of the puzzle appears and pulls the story back into headlines. And that leaves one massive unanswered question hanging over everything. What happens if more insiders decide to speak? Because Sophie's comments may have cracked open a door the palace kept sealed for years. And once a door like that opens, even slightly, it rarely closes quietly. Some royal analysts now believe the next chapter of this saga could come from an entirely different direction. Former staff members, security officials, or media figures who witnessed the events firsthand. People who, until now, chose the same path the monarchy followed for decades. Silence. If even one of them decides to tell their version of what really happened inside those palace walls, the story could change all over again. And that possibility has royal watchers paying very close attention to every interview, every offhand comment, every small shift in tone coming from inside the House of Windsor. because history shows that the most explosive revelations in royal history rarely arrive with a warning. They arrive quietly, in a single sentence, during an interview that suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. Which brings us back to the moment that started this entire storm. The moment Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, decided that after years of royal silence, a few words needed to be said out loud. But if those words were only the beginning, if they were just the first crack in a much larger story, then the real question isn't what happened before. The real question is what happens next, because inside royal history, the most dramatic chapters are never the ones people see coming. And if the whispers circulating through palace corridors are even half true, the next revelation might be closer than anyone thinks. And now the question turns to you. After hearing everything, from the quiet warnings inside palace corridors to the explosive moment when Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, finally spoke publicly, what do you think really happened behind those royal doors? Was this simply another chapter in the endless media war surrounding Meghan Markle and Prince Harry? Or was Sophie hinting at something the public has only begun to understand, something that had been quietly building inside the monarchy long before the world ever heard the first whispers of conflict? Because one thing is clear, the tension surrounding Prince William and the future of the royal family isn't disappearing anytime soon. Every interview, every documentary, every royal appearance, each one seems to reopen the same question: what really happened behind palace walls? Supporters of Meghan insist she was misunderstood and unfairly targeted by an outdated institution. Critics argue the monarchy simply refused to bend its centuries-old rules for a Hollywood mindset. Two completely different stories. Two completely different interpretations of the same events. And somewhere between them, the truth people are still trying to piece together. So now we want to hear from you. Do you believe Sophie's comments revealed something the palace had kept quiet for years? Or do you think this entire controversy is just another media storm built from speculation and internet theories? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because the debate around this royal saga is far from over. And if you found this breakdown fascinating, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next investigation. Because if new insiders start talking, if new documents surface, or if someone inside the palace decides to reveal another piece of the puzzle, you'll want to be here when the next royal secret comes to light. Until then, keep watching, because in the world of royal history, the biggest revelations often arrive when the cameras least expect them.